amazing. The buildings, as I said, magnificent. And there are a lot of things to enjoy about it, like the zoo or museum, which also seems to be very clean, unlike some cities of the US. But right in the middle of it, nearby the downtown, there is a district where I stayed with my Airbnb host. And I arrived there at night. Surprisingly, the boats in that particular district were not so nice. There was no lights on the street at night. And when I reached my house, I noticed the fence with the height of about 2 meters. And this was unusual to the United States because they usually put such fences in the houses nearby the nature because you're afraid that animals could intervene in your house, or you put them in a bad districts. So, and Houston is not anywhere close to the nature. It's in the middle of a desert. And that particular house was almost in downtown of Houston, where no animals could reach. That was my first sign of worry. And then I stayed there for several days. I noticed a second thing. When I get out in the morning, I noticed that the streets is definitely bad and the roads definitely didn't care for a long time. And there were abandoned houses. Actually, there are a lot of abandoned houses, probably left decades ago, deteriorating and ready to collapse. There was a shop in the corner. And whenever I bought something from there, I couldn't help myself but notice that the cash register was behind an armored glass bar. And there is a tiny, tiny window where you put the cash or credit card. And when you go out, you notice young, mostly Black people driving car around, listening rap, and looking at you like you are the enemy. Sounds sketchy, right? Sounds bad. When I shared that story of my experience living in such district with my friend from Bentley University who worked at Office of Inclusion and Diversity, she said that she's glad that I came alive, solid and sound. And that district was definitely not the best part of the Houston. However, I couldn't help but notice that she is worried about something. Then she suggested to play the game, and I all invite you to play it with me. It's not a particular game, but it's a situation. So imagine yourself in a situation when you grew up in a district who start to deteriorate, probably some of the cities of Kazakhstan, apart from Astana and big other cities, nearby some deteriorating village, for example. Imagine that by circumstances, by unfortunate circumstances, you may be not able to have one parent or lost both of them. Imagine that you have brothers and sisters to care about, and you had to start work way earlier without receiving education. You work hard, and your brother and sister was able to get the scholarship to study in a good school. However, let's put that good story on a side and imagine yourself in a contrast. Raising up in a happy family with both parents alive, receiving the best education you could probably do because your parents paid for your private school. And then you were able to apply for top university and receive a scholarship. You became happy, you live a happy life, you get married, get a good job, well paid, and you start to raise your kids. Now, where do you put your kids? You probably send them to private school, right? Where do you live? You will probably live in a good neighborhood because you can afford it. And there is no wrong with that. But imagine one more last thing, that your private school where your kids study decided to do some social activities and invited some kids from that neighborhood to study in a school. And you know that bad kids were exposed to the bad influence in a district where a lot of crime, violence, and drug abuse. How do you feel about it? How do you feel that your kids will study with such kid? When she told me that story first, I have to admit, my first reaction was no. I don't want such kid to be in the school with my kids. That's not for what I pay, right? But unfortunately, this is not only my reaction. This was a reaction about half of the staff in my Bentley school. And the reason they did it is because exactly that we all judge before we can think properly. I was biased, I was prejudiced. And I say, I can imagine being like that. But again, if I think about that two kids, one is prosperous and one from a bad neighborhoods, I have to admit, I have to think twice about it. We're still judging by the bad clothes, the appearance of the bad clothes of the person. We're still judged by the way they speak, not by the way we think. And in the recent events, we saw what's happened. And I want to ask you to think really deeply and honestly. Will you accept that kid in that school? Probably, and this is justified, that your kid could be exposed to that influence. Please think about it and answer to the question honestly. Over to you.